Welcome to the special 2018 seasons of the Wealth Standard Podcast, celebrating life, liberty, and property. You are currently listening to Life Season 1.
Okay, Jon, welcome to the show. So it sounds like you're in beautiful, the Big Apple, beautiful New York City.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's not a bad day here. It's on the cold side, but can't complain.
Yeah, my parents are still back east on the Cape, and they've had kind of a miserable winter. So anyway,
People think it's a long one, but you know, I got a really warm coat last winter, and I have to say, after having lived in New York for like 10 years, it's totally changed the city for me. Like, it just can't get so cold that I can't still get outside, and it opens up the city in a nice way. If you're warm enough, that's all that matters.
Yeah, and obviously with the cold, you can always put on more layers.
Yep.
Well, good. Well, Jon, I'm really excited to have you on. I mean, you've done a tremendous amount in less than a decade. So right now you're the CEO of Betterment, founder of Betterment. I love maybe for those who aren't familiar with the business, and you guys have done a phenomenal job of marketing. So I imagine it's a name that most people are familiar with. But for those that may not be, why don't you give kind of an overview of how Betterment got started? And what you do as a service.
Betterment is an online financial advisor. We have customers who come to us and tell us about their goals and their lives and what they're saving for and their views and values and all those kinds of things. And based on their personal situation, we personalize portfolios for them. We tell them how much to save and which accounts. We optimize and automate all the things that they should be doing with their money so that they're on track to their goals and making the most of everything that they've earned. This idea came from my background consulting to banks. I worked for years with some of the country's largest banks and brokers, and I learned a lot in that time about how these big institutions work and how they think, and I saw lots of smart and well-meaning people thinking a lot about money and thinking about how do we make money and how do we optimize around making money off of our clients. And I saw relatively little thinking about customers and humans and how do we make really smart advice accessible and how do we actually help people make better decisions. And so I saw this opportunity to build financial products around humans, to build products that would help people make great decisions, that would help put customers back in control by giving them the information that they need to optimize. And it was for me, and it was for my family and for my friends and everybody like me who wanted the most from everything they've earned. They work hard. They expect their financial services to work as hard as they do.
So this season, and thank you for that introduction. And I'd love to kind of dig just a little deeper, because this season of our podcast is focusing really on the idea of life, liberty, and property, and the idea behind life, which is the individual, I would say, and you alluded to it, is one of the greatest assets that's out there. Whether it's a relationship, whether it's your personal development. Maybe talk through how you just made that connection and flip the switch to say this is what I'm going to do, and then where did you start?
I wanted to have an impact. When I was in college, I got interested in economics and psychology and what's now known as behavioral economics, and that's always been an interesting area to me. When I graduated, I wasn't sure what I'd do with it, because no one is hiring people who just want to make the world a better place by helping people make better decisions. There's no career path in that. So I thought for a while about being a doctor. And I was working in the biolabs on neurobio. I was volunteering in the hospital and working with patients there. And neither of those things was really fulfilling to me. I loved the science, but I didn't feel like I was impacting enough. I wanted to be fixing the entire hospital, not just the individual patient. I saw so much inefficiency in everything. And I realized that to have the impact I wanted to, I'd have to go into business. And not really knowing what business meant, I moved to New York, where it's the center of business. And I looked around for people who seemed to be having an impact. And one of my friends was consulting to banks And I never wanted to work for banks. I never really liked financial services. I cared more about people. I cared about helping people. And yet I thought I'll give this a try and I'll learn a little bit for a couple of years and I'll see what I can do. And in doing that and in working in financial services, I saw there was a real opportunity to rethink it around human beings and to rethink it around the customer. And that excited me. And of course, it's intimidating to leave a job. And I left, a great job as a consultant to strike out on my own and start a business. And I asked for a lot of advice, and most people told me don't do it. And there's some truth to what they were saying. They said this is going to be really hard and going to take a long time. And they were right about those things. So, I had this view that I really wanted to have a big impact, and I thought the way to do that is to strike out and do something on my own, and I'm glad that I did. It's been a great ride. It's been a lot of fun.
Well, what time frame is this? Is this pre kind of 2008 debacle, or is this kind of right in the thick of it?
In the eye of the storm. I was looking at starting a company in 2007, 2008, and it was just as the financial services industry was kind of falling apart here in New York. And that added to the chorus of voices who said, why would you want to do anything in this industry? It's a terrible time to get started there.
Or the best time.
Or the best, right? Sometimes those turn out to be the real opportunities, because a lot of the big financial services companies have been distracted worrying about all the messes that they've made, and you continue to see scandals every year from, most recently it's Wells Fargo, but it's a different bank every quarter. It feels like it's getting in trouble for something. So all of that it's created a fertile bed. And still, if you look at the trust surveys, Edelman does these annual consumer trust surveys. Mm-hmm. Financial services come out at the bottom score for all the industries. People trust anything more than they trust their financial services providers. And technology comes out near the top. People trust technology companies. And my view is that's because technology is more reliable, predictable, stable than your typical financial service firm, and people believe that founders behind technology companies, not always, but maybe more than financial services companies, have the customer in mind, and are optimizing around building a great customer experience.
So how did you set up maybe the culture of Betterment? Because I would assume that with your drive, in order to get a team, your executive staff, your C-level staff, all on the same page, assuming they held the same beliefs as you, you'd have to set up a pretty strong culture. So maybe talk to how important that is to really what that future mission of what your mission of Betterment is and what the future looks like.
Yeah, sometimes people ask me, is this a technology company or is it a financial services company? When I usually answer, I'll say it's a tech company and we just happen to be in financial services. But I've been recently thinking we're neither. We're a consumer company. Right? We think about the customer, and it's different because it's just we start from a different place than the typical financial services company. I go to a lot of lunches and meetings with kind of financial industry bigwigs. I was at one such lunch yesterday, and these are managers of big hedge funds and mutual funds and things like this. And the conversation there is all about these abstract forces in the markets that have nothing to do with their customers. And so for me, the culture here is it's all about our customers and optimizing around them and listening to them and building what they need. That's the culture of Betterment.
And that's where I would see. I think I saw a study yesterday that like 1,700 banks closed in 2017, and I see the same, maybe similar things. But you're right on the front lines. So what do you see as the future of financial services? Because I would say the conflict as far as what they're focused on, meaning hedge fund managers, executives of big financial companies, what they're focused on versus really what people want right? Which is connection. They want to feel they have a guide, they have someone that's taking care of them. Like, what do you think the future is going to look like when it comes to financial services?
Our view is that the future of financial services is centered around guidance, that technology applied to just about any industry. If you think about what's happening in, say, transportation, we have much more technology being applied to transportation, first in mapping technology, and it's easier to get from A to B. And now people talk about self-driving cars and whatnot and optimizing routes. And really, it's guidance. There's more and more intelligence that's helping to get us from A to B more efficiently, faster, more fuel efficiently, more comfortably, whatever it is. And in a sense, we're doing the same thing in financial services. We're bringing together a lot of data points, understanding your full financial life, integrating that, and guiding you to better outcomes. Still personalizing to all of your preferences and leaving you in control. And that guidance really, we believe, makes us your central financial relationship. There are other players in the industry who think the same. All the big banks see this coming too, and they think, wow, we should be in the guidance game. But they're banks. They're really good at selling banking products, or the mutual fund companies are really good at selling mutual funds, or the brokers just sell whatever makes them the highest commission. At Betterment, we're a fiduciary advisor. We're an advisor, and that's the only relationship that we have with our customers. And because we're an advisor and we're independent of the products, we're able to really recommend the right things for you. And you pay us for the advice that we give and for the guidance we give. And we believe that's the right relationship to have with the financial services firm of the next 100 years.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you know who Peter Diamandis is, but I got a chance to listen in on his Abundance 360 conference that he had a couple weeks ago. And he was talking about all the different innovations that are taking place, one of which is the whole 5G internet, which will allow for the Internet of Things connectivity, especially among cars, self-driving cars. And so I think like the advent of technology and how much it's really replacing some of the the manual things that are being done, it's going really quickly. But I would also say that the desire, what people want as far as connection is concerned, is the reason why Yelp has put chain restaurants out of business, and why there's these mom and pop boutique type of restaurants that are out there, because they're the ones that are really appealing to those who want a good experience, and hence the ranking system. And I think the same thing is going on with a lot of these other companies, and they're just not happy with the services that are being provided because that experience isn't there. And I think you're capitalizing on it. So what would you maybe say are some of the bigger opportunities that Betterment has because of this, I would say societal shift, if you can call it that. But you have these massive companies out there. You have still big brokerages, big banks, big insurance companies. Like, what do you see as your opportunity as these companies struggle to kind of find their culture and their place in a quickly evolving world?
Well, there's a few big ideas that we're working toward. I think already today, Betterment has, just as a baseline, we're already bringing together your full financial picture. We're giving you a sense of which accounts you should open, how much you should invest in each. And in a sense, it's that dream of a totally automated and optimized investing account that's working for you every day. We've already realized that dream, and it's just getting better. And where I think about where do we go from here, and how do we continue to challenge the industry, and how do we continue to move forward? Well, we're listening to our customers, we're responding to them, that. But some of the things that we're hearing are, I want this to be really fully, truly personalized to me in every way that you know how. So for a long time, we've offered New York muni bonds if you're in New York, and California muni bonds if you're in California. And now we offer socially responsible funds if you want to be socially responsible, or we offer income or smart beta types of funds if you want those types of things. But all of that, we're just pressing it further and further so that we can build a totally personalized portfolio that performs better for you, given your specific views and values. And that's a really exciting lane for me that, say, the mutual fund companies can't do, because they have one fund that serves 1 million people. And if you want this fund, you got to be in the same fund as 1 million other people. We're personalizing a separately managed account that's individualized for your needs. So that's a really exciting lane that we can go down. That's going to be hard for the incumbents to keep up with. Another is managing all of your savings. I think the way the industry historically has thought about giving advice is this life cycle model. Now, I read this great book a couple weeks ago. We have a book club here at Betterment, and we read the Financial Diaries, and it was talking about how real Americans have quite volatile incomes. If you look at the traditional life cycle model, they're in debt in their early days, they start making more and more money, they start saving more, and over time, later in life, then they accumulate savings and investments and then spend that down in retirement. And that's all fair and good for the average, and it looks good if you average across many thousands of Americans. But every individual in this survey had income shifts of 25 or 30% in a given year.
Wow.
They were out of work for some period of time. And these kinds of things affect all of us. It doesn't matter if you're poor or, middle class or wealthy. You experience major shifts. Parents get sick. Children's have, maybe your kids want to go to grad school, not just college. Maybe you want to retire when you're 50, not when you're 68. People, people of all income levels have positive and negative surprises to deal with. And we believe that everyone should have great financial guidance about what to do right now in this specific instance, not just this full life cycle plan, but what should you do today to be on track today. So that's an exciting area that we believe technology can develop a lot in the years to come.
So it sounds like you're gleaning a tremendous amount of feedback from current customers. How do you go about interpreting that data, interpreting those surveys, and then taking action on it? And are you typically finding those nuggets that are the consistencies across the board associated with those surveys?
Yeah, so I have to give credit to the entire Betterment team here, because we have a lot of people who are looking at all of this. And we do a thing at Betterment called Customer Week, where literally everyone in the company talks to customers. And it rotates, throughout the year who's doing Customer Week. It's not all at the same time, but all of them are on the phones and answering emails with our customers. And that is a great way to firsthand get to understand who is calling in, what do they want to know. You see the common questions, you find patterns, and then you come up with your own solutions that you take back to your team or advocate for when you hear other people coming up with them. Of course, we're doing 100 different ways of listening to customers, and some of that is the Customer Week I described. One is Voice of the Customer, where we're taking and aggregating all the feedback that our customers give, and then targeting that at product managers and people who are building solutions. We do research with people who aren't yet customers but are prospects to understand what they're looking for. We have user design research that we're doing with customers who are actually using the product, and we sit and watch them use it to understand what they're doing. So there's I could go on and on. It's a favorite topic of mine, but bringing the customers to life inside Betterment is an important part of my job. But fortunately, I'm supported by an incredible team who are all really passionate about our customers.
So I had a fascinating dinner a little less than a year ago with Doug Duncan, who's the chief economist of Fannie Mae. And he came in, I don't know if you know much about him, but he came in right when they went into receivership. And it was fascinating discussion on all fronts. But one of the things that I still think about is that is what he said really started to save Fannie Mae, was the fact that he went out and started to do 10,000 surveys, a month of people that held mortgages, and it was getting their feedback as far as what they understood and didn't understand, and they used that feedback in order to create policy, to create, interaction, to create product, to create material that would answer the actual questions that they have, not what people thought they have. And I think that's, one of those things with, all parts of financial services, right? Is there's this assumption of what people want, right, as opposed to actually going out and asking them what they want, and those tastes are always changing. So I don't know. It's fascinating that you guys are kind of on that cutting edge, because I don't see a lot of companies that are doing that. And I would say, kudos to you guys for having that system, because it's like you're creating opportunities based on what people want. So when you come up with the opportunity, it's like they already want it. So it's a win-win all around. It sounds like. Well,
when I worked in the financial industry, I saw the same thing that you're describing. I would work on product development projects, and I often remember being on a 6-month project where we would go through and we would optimize around default rates and different credit scores and all the understanding of attrition and cost of acquisition, and build these really complex pricing models and design a product without ever talking to a customer. And at the end of the project, we would have iterated on the thing that already existed, the same old product, but we wouldn't have really innovated. And that felt limiting to me, and I wanted to innovate around real people.
Well, that's all quantitative. It's all quantitative and you have the human element, right? As you mentioned before, behavioral economics has been fascinating because it really addresses the cause of that end, quantitative measurement. Okay, we don't have a ton of time, but I really want to kind of get your take on, maybe some of the ways in which blockchain, crypto, and how that's kind of working into the environment, because you're a transaction business, right? So I would assume that the utilization of blockchain, number one, from a technology standpoint, could be quite interesting, but then also, just as you've seen, those that are capitalizing on some of the Jobs Act crowdfunding kind of loophole to be able to raise money through ICOs. I'd love to get your take on that.
We're watching blockchain as a company. We're watching it with great interest and exploring it ourselves and through partners to see if there are ways that we can incorporate some of the technology. Anything we can do to drive down cost, create value, drive more value back to our customers, that's exciting to us. And blockchain potentially presents those kinds of opportunities. There are certain efficiencies and that it might drive, and that's exciting. As a store of value or as an investment, it's as yet unproven. And while I know lots of people who are enthusiasts and hobbyists and investors in crypto, some of them here our own employees. And I don't discourage people from doing that. If people who are into that, I think that can be fun. Our advice is just make sure it's not your entire life savings. that keep it to a small portion, and it's play money. It's we threw out the benchmark: less than 5% of your money should be in any kind of speculative investment like that. So that's the main advice I would say. They're really interesting, exciting area. Just don't put all your eggs into that one basket.
So, and that's, I wholeheartedly believe in the same thing. It's been interesting with just people mortgaging their houses and selling off furniture and buying Bitcoin. It's again, human behavior.
Yeah.
So it's always fascinating to watch sometimes. Yeah. All right, so maybe a last question. So as part of because right now, Betterment is for the most part a kind of a securities-based type of financial advisory. Where do you see the fit of insurance and with these big mutual companies, even MetLife has had some major issues last couple of years, but what would you say is their role, and are you guys adopting new products on the near horizon?
We think about, say, our competition broadly as being aware of what customers want from them. They're aware that people want more guidance. They're aware that people want more efficiency. They're aware that there's a group of people out there who really want to make the most of their money. It's just hard for some of these big firms to get out of their own way. It's hard for them to really change because they have a way of doing business that's built around selling a product. So, you think about the mutual fund companies, well, they're really good at selling mutual funds, and the life insurance companies are really good at selling life insurance. And it's a little hard for either of those types of business structures to get around true, holistic, customer-focused innovation and customer-focused guidance because they have a thing that they want to sell you. And so I have no doubt that all of them are having meetings today and talking about how can we get better at this and how can we get out of our own way and change. I'm just not optimistic that they're going to move very quickly.
No, I can say that from an experiential standpoint, because and I would just say it's the nature of a lot of corporations that are out there. I would say their agility is just not there. And it's this corporate red tape, and they've been used to things for so long. And I would say, the younger generation, as they start to maybe replace some of the roles, right, that are currently being held by those, who didn't have computers when they started, in the business. I think that is definitely going to change the dynamic, because talk about human behavior. A lot of the kind of hierarchical, structure of these big corporations are all those that are over the age of 60. And I think that is, hurtful to being agile in the business. But I totally agree. You have a tremendous opportunity, and I think Betterment, is definitely on the cutting edge.
And I don't think that these big companies are bad. I think there's lots of good people who work there. I think they mean well. I think they're trying hard. I think they were founded by good people, and there's still good people who work there. So there's lots of these big companies, and they're well-meaning. I just think that people today expect more, and people today want better, and they want things that are really optimizing for them and working harder, because that's what they deserve, and they know they deserve it. And that's the customer that we see as the core Betterment customers. These people who have worked hard, they're strivers, they're aspiring, and they demand the best.
I totally agree. Okay, well, let's do this as a final question, which I think addresses listeners and customers, and it comes down to what would you say is the biggest opportunity for individuals in this day and age? You obviously are running a company that has employees. You see individual their drive, their ambition, and I think there are a lot of people out there that are really seeking guidance from those that have been successful. So you being one of them, what couple pieces of advice would you give to the individual that is out there grinding and is in pursuit of a meaningful career, meaningful future?
Not everyone has to start their own business, and not everyone will. And I think for all of us, though, it's valuable to have this customer-oriented thinking. If you really think about what impact you're having on the end customer, I think that's a valuable skill in any role, in any company. What's your contribution? How are you going to help the customer? I think that's an important hat to wear. Another thing that I talk about all the time is be long-term oriented. If you think about what's going to help you most right this second today, it may not be as productive as thinking about what's going to happen over the next 5 years, 10 years, and how do you optimize around that long-term focus? Those are things that I talk about all the time. And my favorite advice for everyone, if they are starting a company, is to make it real. Do whatever you can to make it tangible. So an example is when we were starting Betterment, people would say, well, this is a great idea, but it didn't really click for people until I had a website I could show them, and it was operational. And then, we started talking to investors, and they were like, oh yeah, this looks really cool. But it didn't really click for them until we had actual customers on the site, and we're getting real feedback, and we had real users. And, even the little things, like you can just make a business card that has your business name and your name on it. And that's a way to make that thing real, right? It's a tangible thing that you can start to hand out. So whatever you can to get to that next step, make it real as quickly as possible.
Okay, well, Jon, I appreciate your time. I know it's valuable. Great insight, and congratulations on all your success. Look forward to seeing Betterment maybe at a Super Bowl commercial in the distant future.
Sounds good. Yeah, we look forward to that as well.
Okay. Sounds good, man. Have a good one, and hopefully we'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks so much for having me. Bye.
Okay. Take care.
Thank you for joining us as the Wealth Standard Podcast spends all of 2018 celebrating life, liberty, and property. Be sure to leave us a review on iTunes, and we'll see you on the next one.